Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Clash Royale. Today I have another first-time pro guest on the channel. It is Joel, aka Daniel. Daniel, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Nice to be on the channel.
It's great to have you, man. You made a clan called CWA Notice Me when you were second in the world, and it worked.
Yes.
I noticed you. And then since then, you've got to #1 in the world. And the best part about it is that you've done it with a free-to-play friendly deck. You're not 100% free-to-play, but you haven't spent money other than just grand challenges here and there. Is that correct?
Yeah. And it's not even, yes, I've never spent money out of grand challenges. And also, it's not even my money. It's my friend's money. So
it must be nice.
No money on it. Yeah. Yeah, it's really nice.
And this is the deck that you use, which is great. It only has one legendary card, the Log, and everything else, no epics. It's the Mortar Hog deck, which has really been going around a lot in the meta lately, and especially on ladder. So this would be like my high recommendation to you guys if you're looking for a good ladder deck specifically that can contend with really any deck, whether it has epics or legendaries or whatever. And you don't even have all your commons maxed out. That's right? That's correct?
Yeah, most of my commons are still actually like some are level 1 actually. Yeah, because I didn't have points to. My Zap is level 12. Like level 12 and level 13 Zap doesn't really make much of a difference at top of ladder since you can't still. No one has level 11 goblins on top of ladder, so no point of having a high level Zap. Yeah.
Very true, very true. And you can see here, yeah, for sure. Level 12 Zap, not bad. And a level 4 Log, so you make up for it with the Log. But yeah, definitely, and you're #1 right now. Your best season is 275. Really interesting. I'm excited to have you on and learn more about this deck. Before we get into the replays, why don't you just tell me a little bit about this deck? We've seen Hog and Mortar decks before, but we haven't really, at least me, I haven't seen them with the Bats and the Skill Horde, Minion Horde, and Goblin Gang. So, like, tell us a little bit about what you're trying to do with this deck.
All right, so basically, in a normal person's deck, there will be either Zap or Log, but then some decks might have both, but then if your opponent has Zap, then you would want to use your Goblin Gang more than your Bats, and if your opponent has Log, then you would more likely want to use your Bats on defense or on offense. First of all, you always want to play defensively and never go aggressive. Although you don't, and if they play a pump, then you should punish them badly, but don't spend all your elixir on it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, you know what? Before we get super into the decks, I have a million questions, especially about the Mortar and the Hog and their synergy together. But we didn't even really introduce yourself. So, tell us, like, where are you from, and what? You're with Nova, correct?
Yes, I'm with Nova Esports. I joined Nova Esports today and got sponsored. Got all my contract done. I'm going to get a fully maxed account very soon.
Well, congratulations, man. I guess being #1 in the world got you noticed, so good job.
Yes. Thank you.
And where are you from?
I'm from I was born in Sri Lanka, but my mother is from South Korea, my father is from Sri Lanka, and I do live in Sri Lanka. Yeah, I spend most of my life here. Yeah.
Awesome. So you'd be my second South Korean pro next to Pong, I think. On the
channel. Yeah.
Do you watch Pong?
Okay. Yeah, I used to watch him. I used to be a huge fan, but now I'm better than him, so...
Oh, shots fired! Well, hey, you're talking the talk and walking the walk because you are #1 in the world. All right, so let's get back to the deck here. So we have the Hog and the Mortar. Just talk a little bit about when you're playing each, and especially specifically when in the match, like. What makes you decide to start out with a Mortar versus to start out with a Hog? And are you going to play either of those two cards as your very first play with this deck?
Okay, so you can kind of like start off with a Hog if you really don't have any good move, or if you don't want to wait till double elixir timing. You just want to play it as soon as you hit the game and when you hit 10 elixir. You play Hog if your opponent doesn't have a count. If your opponent has many strong counters to the Hog, then you don't want to play a Hog. And you would want to play your Mortar. If your opponent has a strong counter to the Mortar, then you would want to play your Hog more often. Especially if your opponent has a Tornado, then you would most likely want to play the Mortar instead of the Hog Rider, because Hog Rider will get no swings if your opponent can use Tornado properly. And if your opponent has a tank, then yeah, Mortar doesn't work really well. So yeah, Hog would be better. Yeah.
Okay, so obviously you're going to be trying to work around your opponent's counters. What about the first play of the game? Let's start like at the beginning of the match. So what are you generally doing at the very beginning of a match?
I wait for like 1 or 2 seconds just in case some players do play when they hit 10 elixir to see what they have, so I know how to react to them. But I don't go past any 3 seconds. I either like split bats or even zap their tower and just to see what they put. I always wait till their first move. If they don't play anything, I play Ice Golem at the back. Then they're forced to react, or else they're behind elixir, and then I'm leading and I can play Hog behind the Ice Golem and I can make a better push with them when he has less elixir and you have more elixir on the board.
Okay, so your first play is going to be just splitting something in the back. Is there ever a time where you would start out with a mortar or start out with a hog, or is that really only if your opponent, you know, makes a like pumps, for example, at the beginning?
If he pumps, you really can't take out the pump anyway with this deck, except for zap and log directly. But you can, if he pumps in the middle, then you have to put the mortar to the middle so the mortar hits the pump.
Okay.
Or you can hog and pre-log. You always want to pre-log because it anyway takes off 2 elixir off the pump, and you might be able to hit the Goblin Gang. Goblin Gang is very used in this meta. There's so much Goblin Gang, and even goblins. So yeah, pre-log.
Okay. So
after your hog.
Okay, so let me get this straight. If they pump up, especially in front of the King Tower, which is normally where they will to start off a match, you're going to either hog and then log, always hog log, or you're going to put the mortar, if you have mortar in hand, you're going to put the mortar on the pump in the middle.
Yeah, but hog log is actually a better choice than putting the mortar, because mortar doesn't work really well attacking the pump.
Okay, that was my next question. What do you do? What if you have both in hand? What do you do? So you're going to go hog log.
Yeah, hog log. Yeah, or you can even put Ice Golem to tank 1 tower and then hog log, because that's still worth it. Because even after the hog breaks the pump, it can still go to the tower and get some damage done.
Okay, so how about in your eyes, is this deck more of a hog cycle deck or a mortar cycle deck? Like, what are you using more? What's, you know, or does it just really depend on the matchup?
It really depends on the matchup. Actually, I would say I use mortar more because hog is like 90% time used for offense, but mortar is used for defense quite often.
Okay. So in matchups let's talk about beatdown for a second, because beatdown, it's a weird, right? Because as a siege player, you should be at a disadvantage in beatdown. As a hog player, you should be at an advantage in beatdown. So how are you playing this deck against either Lava Loon or against a Golem deck?
Well, if they will always have pump all the time, so you would want to go aggressive. You always want to take off the first tower before he takes off your tower. Before the little time, you would want to take off 1 tower soon, and this deck is very good at defending all the push. If you have 1 lane control, then that would be really good on defending. And on defending the golem or giant, you would want to place the mortar in the farthest place where the giant or golem can come, and so then you can tank the support troop of the giant with the Ice Golem and take it off with bats or Goblin Gang or whatever you have.
Okay, so you're leaning on the mortar pretty strongly defensively in those matchups.
But yes.
Okay. Tell us about the pacing with this deck. So we already talked about how the fact that we don't really want to be making the first move. We want to just start cycling if the opponent doesn't do anything. We talked about how to punish the pump. Now let's talk a little bit about like the tempo. Is there ever a time that you're not going to go super aggressive with this deck, or is it just always played aggressively?
I mean, if you look at my replays, I mean, this deck is so good on defense, honestly. Like, at double elixir time, you can almost defend anything. Even like Golem, Night Witch, Poison is still very defendable. You can turn the Night Witch away with your Ice Golem and take it off with bats, and your Golem, you can counter the Golem with Mortar and the Goblin Gang in the corner, which is not affected by the poison. So you would actually want to go a bit aggressive. I would be having less elixir than my opponent does. If I have more elixir than my opponent does, that means I definitely win the game. If you check one of my replays against Emin Bey, which came on TV Royale. I was in a huge elixir disadvantage. He had 3 musketeers, battle ram. I had like almost no elixir, but I still was able to defend it in double elixir time. So you would actually want to go aggressive than defensive.
Okay, so let's talk about a double elixir time then. So double elixir time is really where, in my mind, it's where your skills of a deck are really tested, because it becomes like an exercise of intuition and instinct, and more so than being able to think about every single move that you make. So when you're playing this deck in double elixir time, what's going through your head? By that point, you've really identified what deck you're playing against and how best to kind of deal with their counters. So are you simply cycling to, you know, Hog and Mortar as much as possible, or what are you doing in double elixir time?
Well, if I have taken one of his tower down, I would never go aggressive on the other side, unless I'm definitely going to lose the other tower. But then if I take down one tower, I would usually always go defensive and place Mortar in the middle, unless he has like rocket or like lightning. And at double elixir time, you would want to just defend as much as you can, because if you're in an advantage. But if you're at a disadvantage, then you would want to go aggressive and try to take off your opponent's tower.
Okay, so that's pretty self-explanatory. What about common mistakes with this deck? In just a second, we're gonna go ahead and go through like a play-by-play. What about like what would be an incorrect way to play this deck?
Starting off, like, don't always pre-log or expect stuff to happen. I see a lot of people, like, when I watch, you know, like low arena TV Royale replays, they always use like log all the time with Hog in case there's like a skeleton army or goblin gang, goblins or whatever. But always count your opponent's cycle, so you know when to log and when to hold your zap, an example. And you don't always, at the beginning, you don't want to, like, even if you place pump, you don't want to go super aggressive, like playing Hog and Minion Horde, unless you know that he doesn't have arrows of that or fireball. Like, know what he has, and then you actually don't ever want to play the Minion Horde unless for defense, for offense at the beginning, because you really don't know what he has or anything. If he has arrows, then you're in a huge trouble because you're down to elixir and you got no damage done. So,
yeah, that's a good point. That's something that we haven't discussed yet, is the role of the Minion Horde in this deck. So give me a couple examples of how you're usually playing Minion Horde. I mean, obviously on defense, you know, against a big push. Other than that, are you ever kind of using, what if your opponent's coming at you with, say, like a giant Night Witch or something like that, and you know they might have Fireball for the Horde? Are you going to try to bait out the Fireball using like Bats and Goblin Gang first and then do the Horde, or how do you deal with that?
Well, Minion Horde is actually like a tank killer, it does quite a lot of damage. So if you play the Minion Horde, then unless he predicts the Minion Horde, which is very hard to do, you can just use Minion Horde on defense, and even if he fireballs your Night Witch, the Night Witch would have already died, and you can use your Mortar on defense on taking out the giant. Yeah. Okay,
so you don't. It sounds like you don't. Is there? I guess what I'm trying to ask is there any bait element of even playing defense? So like, hey, I'm just gonna play Bats for now, make him use his zap, then I'll play Minion Horde or something like that.
For example, if he uses a Lava Loon, Lava Loon usually has arrows or zap, but then let's say if your opponent has arrows, then you can just use Bats first, and he will definitely use arrows because it's totally worth it, and Bats does so much damage. And as soon as he uses the arrows, you can play the Minion Horde, and then you can completely defend even the Lava Loon push.
Okay, yeah, that's exactly what I was getting at. I think it's important to kind of point that out. I want to go ahead and watch the match you had against Tally. I assume this is the Tally, right?
Yeah.
So he's the #1 player in Southeast Asia. He's actually the #1 player to actually get an invite. Go ahead.
He won the CCGSC or something, right?
Correct. Like he's the only player to get an invite so far to the World Finals in London, which will be a lot of fun. I'll be there, so you won't be there, will you, Daniel?
No, I won. I'm age 15. I wasn't. Although I got 20 wins, I wasn't able to qualify because you need to be at least 16.
I can't believe you're 15. You sound like my age. No offense.
Okay.
All right. Let's go ahead and watch this replay. Are you paused at the beginning?
Let's just press watch in right now. 3, 2, 1, watch.
All right.
You pressed it?
Yeah. So tell me about you. This seems like a pretty good starting hand for you.
Yeah, it actually is a good starting hand. I would actually prefer if I have Mortar for the starting hand to defend against the Hog. You can put Mortar in the middle front, so it defends the Hog, and you hit the tower. Usually I wait for 3 seconds, and then if he doesn't play anything, I play my Ice Golem or anything cheap just to know what he has.
Okay, so you went offensively. Is that because you saw that he used 3 elixir on the Ice Wiz and you figured why not?
I wouldn't play the Mortar like that, but I didn't have anything really to play at that moment, so that's why I played the.
Well, you played it over Hog. Is there any specific reason why you did that, or?
As in, why I played Hog with Goblin Gang?
No. Why you played Mortar as your first play instead of just sending in a solo Hog as your first play?
Oh, because he took out the Ice Wizard, and Ice Wizard usually means an Expo deck or a Hog deck, and in this case, it's a Hog deck. So I know that he doesn't have any much tanks. So I just wanted to check out what cards he has, and then that's why I played the Mortar first.
Okay, very cool.
I never counted to Hog because he actually did with this up. So basically, almost like right now, almost every Ice Wizard deck has Tornado. So I knew he had Tornado. That's why I didn't play the Hog at the beginning.
Speaking of Tornado, if people out there don't have Log and they want to use this as a total free-to-play deck, would you maybe suggest subbing in Tornado, or would you use something else like a Fireball or something?
Tornado would actually be very great because Tornado level also doesn't really affect your gameplay so much. But if you don't have Log, I would rather put Ice Spirit, so you have a faster cycle, and then if you use your Log or whatever, or Zap, then you can go with Hog and Goblin Gang, or Hog with Bats. Yeah.
Okay. So back to this match here, you got a lot of damage on that right tower, basically by punishing him with a Hog Goblin Gang in the right. And so at this point in the match, are you just trying to stay like aggressive and defend at the same time?
I'm actually going aggressive because I know I can do a lot of damage. If you see, actually, I did quite a lot of damage on both sides. Yeah. Because it was like kind of too obvious for me that I would do damage. So yeah. But if I can't do damage much, then I wouldn't go aggressive at all.
Okay, cool. And yeah, and you just and you're doing a very good job defensively too, like you said there. Kind of the one thing that you don't have in this deck is a big spell. So, you know, talk a little bit about switching towers like you did pretty early on in this match, right? You switched to the left tower even though you had the right tower down to 360 damage or whatever, but you don't have like a Fireball to finish it off. So when is it an appropriate time to switch lanes?
You should switch, like, it was like 300 something, right? The damage?
Yeah, it was like 350-ish, yeah.
Yeah. I knew I can take that out by Log and Zap continuously, but then I knew, like, his deck is not like a good defense for a Hog deck, so I knew I can play Hog and then take it out at some point. Yeah. And I attacked the right lane. I switched lanes because he was attacking in that same lane, and so I can defend with the Mortar and then use it as offense. As you saw, I defended the Hog with the Mortar and any troop to take out the Hog really fast, and so my Mortar can get some few shots, and there's a small counter push over there.
Okay, so basically, you know, how much damage a tower has on it before you switch to the other tower, it's really depends on the deck you're playing, like what type of counters they have to your Hog mostly, right?
Yeah, and like how much damage you have left on the tower. Usually I would recommend below 400, definitely. Like even actually 300 was actually a bit too much as well, but I knew I was going to be able to take out this tower because I saw all his cards, and then he didn't have any like definite counter to always counter my Hog. So yeah.
All right, man. Well, I feel like we've really learned a lot about this deck. I want to thank you again for coming on. Do you have any like shout outs, anything like that before we let you go? Again, congratulations on signing with Nova today. That's big news.
Thank you very much. I would love to shout out to Octay, like Nova Octay. He's so nice. Like, I mean, he's really nice to me, and then yeah, he made everything possible. Because of him, now I'm with Nova right now, and yeah, so huge shout out to Octay, and to all my fans in Facebook who always commented, like my pictures, and who calls me God or whatever. Yeah, and
cool.
to all my Sri Lankan friends in here, yeah, huge shout out to them as well.
Awesome, man. Well, it was a pleasure to have you on. I will go ahead and link your Facebook or any other social media that you share with me in the description below if you guys are interested in checking out Daniel's information, aka Joel. I don't know what you prefer, but either way, thanks so much for coming on, man. It's been a pleasure covering this deck that is really free to play friendly. I think a lot of people out there are going to really enjoy it and have a lot of success with it.
Thank you very much.
No problem. No problem, man. So that is going to do it for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. Huge shout out to, again, Daniel for coming on. And, of course, my YouTube partner, Bren Chong. Check out his information as well in the description below. Thanks so much for watching. And, as always, take care, guys.